Just before the episode gets underway, I want to take the chance to ask you to support Reimagining Cyber by following or subscribing to the podcast. Also, if you can, why not leave us a rating and a review? It really helps other cybersecurity-minded folk find us. So, follow, subscribe, rate and review. Now on with the show. Welcome to Reimagining Cyber, the podcast where we explore the stories, trends and people reshaping the cybersecurity landscape. I'm your host, Ben, and today we're covering one of the wildest cybercrime sagas in recent history, the arrest and supposed shutdown of Scattered Spider. With me is our resident expert, Tyler Moffitt. Tyler, hello.
Always good to be here, Ben. Good to see you.
Tyler, this group has been all over the headlines, from casino hacks to retail breaches, and now it's apparently closing up shop. So let's start from the beginning. For those who might not be following every twist in the story, who exactly is Scattered Spider?
Yeah, this is a big one for sure. Very high profile. They hit a lot of people, especially in the UK. I'm sure you heard of, Marks and Spencer, Co-op, Harrods, even the Land Rover and Jaguar supply chain attack. They had their hands in that as well. But, I agree. Start from the beginning. They're not like a ransomware gang. They help and assist ransomware, but they are a, access broker, right? Their purpose is to gain the initial foothold of an environment. And then from there decide to, data extortion or give it over to ransomware operators, right? And, instead of coding custom ransomware and developing any sort of payload and infrastructure, their bread and butter literally is social engineering. All right. So these guys are like peak top tier help desk impersonators. Okay. So they impersonate employees. They have many native English speaking people. Okay. And they trick them. They trick these help desk into resetting passwords. They pretend to be employees, right? They'll SIM swap phone numbers to bypass multi-factor authentication, right? It's, low tech compared to nation state APTs, but very, very effective.
So they're really a people hacking group, if you like.
Yeah, I would absolutely call it that. Once they get in, they escalate, access cloud services, VPNs, identity providers, SaaS platforms, you name it. And I mean, they can do whatever they want from there. It's about getting in, right? And they can then sell it. They'll either extort the information directly if they feel like it's good enough for them to make money off of, or sell the access to other groups who will handle the ransomware side.
Now, they've been tied to some major incidents. Remind us, if you would, of a few that put them on the map.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody remembers the MGM Resorts hack in 2023, where they were the initial infection vector or way in, and then they handed it off to Black Cat. So Black Cat was the one that sort of got like the attention. Black Cat was the ransomware that got them, but it's like, hey, look, they were the access brokers. They were the initial way in, right? Then Caesars Entertainment, and then fast forward to like this year, last year, UK retailers, Marks and Spencer, Co-op, Harrods, tech companies, telecom providers. They also work sometimes with shiny hunters, and they had hit Salesforce, potentially Gmail. Just recently, like the most recent around this shutdown time, was Jaguar Land Rover. So absolutely crazy. They even got bold enough to leak data from U.S. government agencies like the CIA and the Department of Defense. Now we call it the Department of War. But that's going to get you in trouble.
And they weren't shy about broadcasting it either, were they?
No. So, we very public presence. And from what we learned later on, which we'll talk about, most of them were teenagers or very young, right? And so they love to boast Telegram channels, taunting messages. You want to call it theatrical, but that's what usually happens when you have youth like this with such skill and devastation.
Let's get into the arrests then. Over the past year, law enforcement seems to have made real progress. What's happened?
Yeah, so this was earlier this month in September. In the UK, 4 young suspects were arrested in connection with the retail attacks, okay? The ages were 17, 19, and 20, all right? So basically teenagers running multi-million-dollar extortion campaigns. The U.S. federal indictments came down on 5 men in their roles in Scattered Spider. Tyler Buchanan, extradited from Spain. The under defendants, Noah Urban and Ahmed El Badawi. We also have a 22-year-old believed to be the ringleader. He was caught in Spain while trying to board a flight. We don't know for sure if he was the ringleader. A lot of the times we don't really get the people in charge. You just get like the lower level affiliates and stuff. So this would be big news if we did. So it'll be interesting to follow this and see. But recently a 19-year-old tied to the telecom breaches surrendered himself in Las Vegas right after the group's shutdown announcement.
So that is one heck of a demographic you got on there. You got like almost kids, you got minors and 20-somethings and some, older people as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes it unique, right? A lot of people didn't really expect that. But this group skew very young, which complicates everything from extradition and prosecution. Do you try a 17-year-old as an adult for cybercrime for tens of millions of dollars in damages and ransoms? It's a tough one that they'll figure out the legal and ethical, path forward.
Now, the headline this week, Scattered Spider and Lapsus Hunters posted on Telegram that they're shutting down. What did they say?
Okay, so this one was pretty crazy, to be honest. This is where a lot of the drama came, and nobody really knows what's going on. But their message, it was like almost apologetic. They claimed that they would stop all attacks, that they would disengage from ransomware association and negotiations, and that they would even delete the stolen data that they had, because a lot of the times they're sitting on tons and tons of data. It's sort of like pending extortions, if that makes sense, that they're still waiting on for money or leaking or whatever they're going to do. They apologized to some victims. They apologized to the CIA. And then some of them even said that they were going to go to rehab.
Rehab? Go on. That's a new one.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't even really make sense. It doesn't even it sounds like a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
They said they'd step away from hacking, some permanently. Others said that they would, no joke, quote unquote, use their skills for good now. And that they warned any new Telegram channels using their name in the future would be imposters. It's just crazy.
Do you buy it?
Mostly no. I think, honestly, reality set in. Some of them were caught. I think all of them they realized that they weren't infallible. They sort of had, probably, especially being teenagers and young 20-somethings, this invincibility aura of making all this money, tens of millions of dollars, compromising all these big businesses, right? Even hitting CIA and DOD. But I think that backfired. And clearly the CIA got to them, arrested some of them, and now they sort of feel that fear and tail of policing entities, and they're scared. Right? They really don't want to spend the majority of their life behind bars, in prison. And so the rehab part is hilarious. I don't see it, to be honest. And it just sounds a little excessive, but obviously they're posting it to try and reduce all the heat that they are currently getting from policing entities that very much are on their tails. Right? And so I think this is more of a scare. We see this all the time, though. So many different people say, "Oh, we got too much attention. We're leaving now. We're done. We'll never come." And then the group just rebrands. So I think this is the end of Scattered Spider or Lapsus Hunters. And they work with Shiny Hunters. Maybe they might get. But as far as what's going to happen in the future, I think they'll just take a break. They'll go on vacation, spend some of the plenty of money that they have, and then think long and hard about it. Realize that, because this is what happens most of the time, they aren't cut for normal working a 9-to-5 shift, especially when they've tasted tens of millions of dollars for sitting behind a computer and stealing from people, which is a much easier fashion, I'm sure, for them. And they'll just rebrand. So I have no doubt that some of them will come. Maybe some will finish for good and be like, you know what, I'm too scared. But I have a feeling, especially like most of these guys, the ones that didn't get caught because they weren't extradited, because they were probably in Russia or somewhere that doesn't extradite to the United States, maybe feel a little more secure. And we'll see ultimately what happens. But, it's we have a long history of this, right? So there are so many other groups out there like Black Cat, Conti, Ryuk, Black Basta, Royal, Revel. Like there's so many different groups out there that have got policing entities on their tail, and then they've stopped. If that makes sense. That group family name has stopped, but then they've come back and rebranded, right? We've seen Like Black Cat was Alpha V, and then they rebranded into Ransom Hub, and then that just went away earlier this year. They're going to come back rebranded again. Why would they stop? And so, the people and the tactics will resurface elsewhere, is my prediction.
So then, why should defenders care if Scattered Spider is gone or not?
The tactics don't vanish, right? I do expect them to resurface, right? The social engineering methods, the SIM swapping, the help desk impersonation, with the vishing that they're doing really well with, and the phishing resistant MFA bypass, that those tactics are still out there. They're still going to be used. Shiny Hunters, who was kind of I would say a close friend of people doing the same stuff to the Scattered Spider, they're still doing it, and they're still out there. They're doing very well. So like the people are going to rebrand, but the playbook lives on. And honestly, defenders, they can't afford to let their guard down just because a group announces retirement. It's not like, oh, thank goodness, we don't have to worry about this anymore. Like, no, absolutely you do. It's good to see policing entities being faster, more reactive, and it looks like actually getting their teeth into them now. But if anything, now is when we should be watching most closely for copycats or rebirths and rebrands.
Okay, moving to the end now. If you're a CISO listening to this, what are the takeaways?
Yeah, identity is the battleground. All right. So definitely invest phishing resistant multi-factor authentication, harden your SIM swap, right? Defenses with carriers, monitor account takeovers. That's really important. And then help desk training, like this is a big one. I would say the past 2024, 2025, I feel like this past year is year of the help desk scamming. Most of the intrusions just start with a phone call, pretending to be an employee. If your help desk, can be tricked into resetting a password and letting someone in because they think they're an employee, you are vulnerable, right? And next would be zero trust, right? Assume credentials will get stolen and build your systems and infrastructure that require continuous verification, right? And lastly, public-private partnerships work, right? So the arrests we've seen across the UK and US and Spain, they show that law enforcement collaboration is possible and effective. And we've got some of these guys literally extradited and behind bars awaiting sentencing. This is good news because I won't lie, most of my history, 15, 20 years working in it felt like at least a good 10-year stretch they weren't catching anybody other than low-level affiliates. And this just compounds on top of Operation Endgame. They did a really good job, right? Which compounds further on top of Operation Kronos. These are some recent developments that were very good, and I'm excited to see, it feels good to see the good guys come in and actually, start catching some of these bad guys.
Looking forward then, Tyler, what are you watching out for?
Again, like we said, these tactics aren't going away. Just because the group that made them famous or perfected them, and brought them to the forefront is now shut down or scared or taking a break or going to rehab, new groups will come out with similar tactics, okay? And I honestly suspect it's going to be some of these guys who weren't caught that are in other countries that won't be extradited. They will cause, they'll be a part of it. They'll just rebrand, right? Underground chatter, especially about the regrouping is going to happen. There will be people showing us. It's usually pretty telltale when you see a lot of the exact same tactics come out. Another thing to watch out for would be leaks of any unreleased stolen data. Remember, they were sort of operating like a business, and they have tons and tons of companies that they've breached that were pending, resolution on the ransom of the data that they extorted from them. So there's still a whole bunch of companies out there that maybe were dealing with them, maybe in the process of paying, maybe not going to pay now, but that data is still stolen. Is it going to get leaked? What's going to happen there? They claim that they're going to delete it. If they really do delete it, that's one thing. But, history usually suggests that data might not get deleted, right? Also, court case outcomes. They have yet to be sort of sentenced. I'm curious to see how the juvenile cases are handled. Could set precedent for a future cybercrime involving minors. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Tyler, that really was an utterly fascinating breakdown there. It's one of the stories that shows that cybercrime, it isn't just about malware and code. It's about people. It's about identity. And sometimes, as we've seen here, kids making global headlines.
Yeah, exactly. whether or not Scattered Spider is truly gone, their tactics and influence will keep echoing in the threat landscape, and I anticipate we're going to see them rebrand and some of them come back for sure.
Tyler, fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on, Ben.
And thanks to you as well for tuning into Reimagining Cyber. If you found this episode useful, please do share it with your network and subscribe or follow for more insights. Until next time, goodbye.